Okay,
Yep.
perfect. So hey everybody, I'm Lauren Cohen. I'm originally from Toronto. I'm here in South Florida. I am a cross-border lawyer and a realtor. So I bring a lot of clients to business brokers. That's actually how I met Brian, through Susan, who is up in Orlando and connected us, because I'm always looking for good business brokers that are familiar with the model of working with foreign nationals. You guys probably see on the BBF a lot of check marks saying visa qualified. That's a load of baloney. There's no such thing as visa qualified, okay? So it's a really problem because it misleads clients and brokers into thinking that just because something has that check mark, it's going to be qualified. It's not. There's no such thing as visa qualified for an E2. And so what you have to do is work with somebody like myself that looks under the hood of the business to help you figure out if that business is viable and for an E2. And it's not just about the price, it's about the business, it's about the marginality, and we'll go through some of that. My contact information is on this slide here, or Brian can share it with you. You can also follow me on Facebook. I'll put a couple of other links in the chat that I share with prospective clients, which you can share with them as well. And two of these links are going to be super useful for you guys if you're interested in learning about E2s. So I'm going to try to make it paste. Oh, good, it pasted. Yay. Okay. So, so I am the host of Investing Across Borders, a podcast about how people invest, live, work, and play across borders, which is my tagline. And as I mentioned, I'm also a realtor, and I'm the chair of the International Investment Committee for EXP Commercial. So I'm pretty well versed in this subject, and I am extraordinarily popular these days, it seems. As a matter of fact, I have to make my calendar inaccessible. Like I can't even I don't have enough time to put the people on my calendar that want to go at $300 for 20 minutes. Like, that's how crazy it is. I'm trying to make my calendar inaccessible and they're still going for it. I'm like, okay, I mean, what am I going to do? Charge $500 for 20 minutes? They'll still do it. So it's not that I'm trying to get them into groups so I can do the training and teach them what they need to do, help them get into the businesses that you guys are offering to them, help them understand how to make that business work. Now, somebody mentioned a visa contingency. So if there's a business that has a visa contingency, or that the owner is willing to work on that basis, bring that business to me, because there's very few sellers that are willing to do that. And that's a big deal, because I happen to promote franchises more just because of that. Really, that fact that, you know, without that contingency, they could be subject to paying for the full business and not be able to run it. Okay. So let me see here. Why is it not going down to this next slide? Okay, there it is. So this is my disclaimer. I have to do this because I am a lawyer after all. I'm not giving legal advice. I'm not giving investment advice. I'm just sharing information with you, okay? So I'm going to go through these slides pretty quickly and not show you all of them. This is a little bit of information about me and my background and how I've been doing this for far too long. I personally overcame some major challenges in the visa process myself. My ex-husband, now ex-husband, was deported on the way back from our honeymoon, and that's what got me to be an immigration lawyer. So before that, I was an in-house corporate lawyer, and things changed quickly once he was deported. I was like, oh, I guess I need to do something. So these are just some client stories about some of my success situations, which basically is that I'm an all-in-one solution. I am an immigration lawyer, but I'm not the one that's actually going to process the petition. I'm going to coordinate all of the moving parts. I'm the quarterback. So that's why I bring in the business broker. I bring in the realtor wherever they are. I bring in the transactional attorney in Texas, in Arizona, in Florida, wherever. Okay. This particular client of mine is actually now a very good friend. He had a denial. He invested in a promotional business, and he had a denial. It was from Canada, and the denial, I got the denial overturned, and he's been here now for 3.5 years. And that was a picture of us a few weeks ago meeting to discuss his renewal. I don't usually meet clients in person, but he's a dear friend, so I met him. So I shouldn't have done that because it implies that I meet with clients. And if you, these days, especially with 250 people attending my Zoom this afternoon, that was a crazy number. I had 565 people registered for it. Crazy. I've never seen something like it before. But anyway, it is what it is. So these are the top 10 mistakes people make when investing across borders, which probably all of you know, and they fail to work with professionals. They just find a business and they're like, oh, I want to buy that business. And they don't work with us, and they don't work with lawyers, and they don't work with tax advisors, and they think they know everything, and they don't, especially when they're coming from another country like Italy or Canada, both of which have the E2 available. So this was very client-focused webinar, excuse me, that I did earlier. So this was talking about the benefits for the clients. And here is a slide about the different visas, which there's a link to in the chat. So there's E2, E1, L1, EB5. Those are the ones you guys probably have heard of. EB5 is the green card visa, which you can buy a business, start with an E2 and use that business and grow that business into an EB5 business. You cannot buy a business with 10 employees and qualify for EB5. You have to hire 10 new employees. There is also a link in the chat to an EB5 video, which will explain that whole process for you. EB5 is the only way to get a passive green card. E2 and E1 are the most popular visas. The E1, I call it the coveted visa in my book. It's about a a substantial investment in a non-marginal business. And we'll go through that, what the heck that is in just a moment. These are some of the visa benefits that you could share with your clients about, that they can get a social security number, their kids go to school, the spouse gets to work, they get legal status, they're able to travel freely, and it's a moderate capital investment. Okay, so let me go through these here. This slide is one of the ones I put on the download. It's the E2 steps, number 4, in the second set of downloads, which you guys probably want, although we did catch a typo in here, but it's not the end of the world. But this, the left side of this is good for you guys. It basically gets you into a business. Where do we get the business? How do we get the business? This is always their number one question, okay? And they're struggling and they're frustrated right now, and they want to get out of lockdown and into opportunity and freedom and sunshine and all of that. And right now, I just happen to be in the right place at the right time because I am Canadian and American, and I'm obviously, like I said, a lawyer and a realtor. So they're coming to me in droves because they think that, or they feel that they can trust me, which is true. And so basically they get through all these steps and then we write a business plan. It doesn't matter if the business is existing or new, we have to write a visa-oriented business plan. That's the single most important document in the submission. Then we get through the process of applying for the visa, applying for the interview, and entering the US once they get the visa. Now, I know that that there was some questions about the E2 Lite, or I call it the E2 Lite. It's kind of the expedited option, which we'll talk about in just a moment. There are some downsides and some upsides to it, but it is the general way we do this for Canadians and Brits and whatever is a 5-year renewable visa, does not turn into a green card ever, but they can renew the visa indefinitely. And usually what would happen is the spouse would get a job and hopefully be sponsored by the spouse's employer. Okay, and don't worry, I'll be available to answer some questions because I know I'm going through this quickly, but I want to cover a lot of ground. So this is the number one slide these days because, everybody's coming to us saying, I'm not vaccinated. That's the big Canadian push, is they're not vaccinated and they can't basically leave their homes. Okay, so, one thing I would strongly recommend, don't get involved in politics. I'm sure you don't. But seriously, if I had $1 for every time somebody tries to push me in that direction, and it's very challenging because I have very strong political views, but I stay neutral, like truly neutral. Look at this, see, there's a mistake. Okay, truly neutral in the whole process, and it's hard. So now I actually have 2 group tracks for the program. One is for vaccinated people and one is for non-vaccinated. Not for nothing, except for the fact that they have different tracks, okay? So what is this about? So consular processing is the general way that people would, up until now, go about getting a visa. They go to London, they go to Toronto, they go to Buenos Aires, whatever. They wait for an interview, they get the interview, they go to the interview, they get the visa, okay? They get a 5-year visa or whatever the term is. and it's renewable and there's no restrictions and you can travel and you don't have to, there's not even a residency restriction, okay? Well, guess what? That's not really feasible if you're not vaccinated, because you're going to be now waiting 10, 12 months for the Toronto consulate to process your document and give you an interview. Although I did have a client submit at the beginning of December and his interview is the end of January. So there are exceptions. But for the most part, through COVID, and I'm sorry to be talking so fast, I hope that you're following me. What's the lovely Italian guy's name? I hope I'm not talking so fast for you, am I?
You're doing good for me.
Okay, I'm just feel bad because, you know, English is, I can only say grazie, that's it. So, but I am from Toronto, which is like Italy, you know, east or whatever. So west, Italy west. So with that being said, the other option is that a client, let's say they find a business and they're ready to go now, okay? And the client wants to be here and they don't want to go to Canada. They want to get out as quickly as possible. And right now with the snow dump the other day in Toronto, suddenly there's even more of a demand, right? So what do? They come in as a visitor 91 days after they're here. Why? Because then it kind of overcomes this dual intent thing. They apply for a visa. They have to have their business in place. So you've got an opportunity to sell a business quickly, right? They have to have their business in place, their business plan done, their petition done. As soon as all those things are done, they can submit after 91 days. You don't do it before. And that's where the expedited option comes in. Susan, right? Was it, who was Sandra? Who was the lovely lady that referred a client to me?
It's me, Stacy. Sorry, yeah. I had muted myself.
I knew it was an S. I apologize.
That's all right.
So this is what you call change of status. It is not a true visa. It is a change of status, which puts you in E2 status while you are in the US on US soil, but you cannot leave. As soon as you leave, even to go on a cruise, you lose status. So if these people have family in Canada, they're not going to be able to get this visa. Okay. Now, for some people, because they're like, I'm not vaccinated, I don't want to go back, and I can't deal with the challenges of, like, you know, all of the quarantine and all this, then they can have this option of doing this visa. The other downside of this visa, it's only 2 years. So think about it. I don't know. I'm not commenting on politics, but think about it. You're not vaccinated. You're moving your family to a new country. Okay, let's even take you're moving your family to a new country. Would you like to be on a cycle of every 2 years, not knowing if you're going to be able to stay in that country? I mean, it's mind-blowing to me. Like, you know, I understand that you have like your political views or whatever, and you don't want to get vaccinated, but you're putting, like, then stay in Canada, but you're putting your family at risk, because some of these people have young children. But I don't comment. I'm like, okay, this is the option. I just talk facts, you know, but it's challenging because I have an 11-year-old and I couldn't possibly live on that 2-year cycle, especially when you have invested in a business. So now you have your family here. You don't know when you're going to have to leave, but it's a 2-year cycle. And on top of that, we also don't know if they're going to make vaccination mandatory for the E2 in the future. So you've got 2 years to play with. That's about it. Right now, you cannot get a green card unless you're vaccinated as of November 1st. So that's over. So we know that visas will be next. Okay, and so then I talk about the impact of vaccination.
You said no green cards if you're not vaccinated. Was that
Correct.
for the United States, or is that?
Yeah.
Green card is for the US.
Okay. Thanks.
Doesn't matter what path it is, whether it's marriage, whether it's business, whether it's investment, doesn't matter. There are green cards, vaccination is mandatory. Just like it is for TB and all kinds of other stuff. Okay. Perfect. So right now, one of the things you have to be very sensitive to is that these people need to get across the border. Now, what I do is I only help them get a visa. I do not help them get across the border. you do not want to comment on getting across the border because you can't. This is completely discretionary and there's nothing to do with like immigration law. It has to do with the border, and you know how the border is. It's always fun. Okay, so this is what I talk about: the green card availability, potential changes, challenges, whatever. And I created this group program, and here's the way it works. Phase 1, find the business, make the investment, talk to the cross-border tax guy, build your business model, and get across the border. Okay, if you're not vaccinated, you don't go to the second phase, which is build your business plan, until and unless you're across the border. If you're vaccinated, your situation is different. Okay? And we don't need to talk about this because you're all business brokers, but there are ways to make real estate investments, multifamily real estate, which you can still make, fees from. I mean, you're all realtors. So there are ways. I have created this slide, which is 10 steps to immigrate through real estate. It's one of the downloads I shared with you, although I can see that there's some challenges in transferring this over. So we have to work on that. I don't know why the spacing of everything got messed up. But there is availability for real estate investment to qualify. Now, this slide is particularly relevant for you guys because it taught, what we're selling is a dream. We're selling them the opportunity to become entrepreneurs. I have a client that worked at a steel mill all his life in Hamilton, Ontario, and he just moved to actually Central Florida with his wife, or not wife, they're not married because they're both in the midst of divorces, his partner, and she was a teacher, and now they're going to be entrepreneurs. So we have to sell them that. That's what we're selling, that dream, the dream of freedom, sunshine, entrepreneurs. And where are they coming? Florida, Texas, Arizona, but Florida is #1 by far. So you're in the perfect place at the perfect time. Okay? And this just talks about some of the value-added services that we offer. By the way, I was a business broker for 5 years, so I'm very intimately familiar with the model. I worked with Andy down here, and this is a little bit about why they want to work with us, because we have an expert team, and that's the story. Did that pretty fast. So now you see what I'm about. Do you have some questions, guys?
Yes,
So
I have a
far, so
question.
good. Oh, good.
About the green card vaccination that you told me that is from November 1. Do the people, is apply to all the people that will apply after November 1, right? Okay. And I have another question for you. When a person come here and invest in a business, if there is no contingency with the E2 visa, what they can do inside the business? Like, can they work?
They
Can they
can't
manage?
work. They can
Okay.
run the business. They just can't draw a salary because they don't have their social security number yet.
So can they run the business?
Yeah, as long as they're not drawing any salary, they can operate the business, but they shouldn't be like in there every day. They should be doing it a little bit quietly, but it's not illegal to develop a business.
Oh, okay. So in this case, an investor can invest in a business, can run the business, and in this case, he will be in the change of status, right?
Not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
Depends on where they are and what process they're following. So not necessarily, okay? Also, in order to get an E2, you have to be invested. Your funds have to be invested and at risk. That means the business has to be, you either have to have your funds in escrow or you have to have purchased the business or made some level of investment in the business.
Okay. Okay.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Lauren,
Yeah.
what is a typical size of business that people are looking for are there particular industries? What do you
Sure.
see?
So unfortunately, you can get away with as low as about, sounds like a herd of animals and it's just my kid. Like, You can get away with as low as 100,000. Okay, but it depends. If you want to do an EB-5 as well and get a green card, then you need to have a business that's either expandable or more expensive. And there's no, when it comes to an E2, it's not actually a hard and fast rule. It's not like 100,000. It could be less, it could be more, and it's going to depend on the business. Like if it's a lawn care business, probably going to be more than if it's like a service business or a consulting business.
What kind of financing issues are there when
No
dealing with-
financing. You can't get SBA financing. They have to get private financing, and there's some commercial lenders that will lend to foreign investors. It just depends on what they have there. Sometimes they're going to use their line of credit to get access to the business, but that's definitely a challenge.
So are these typically smaller deals or
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you can do a lot of them if you get in good. Like there's somebody up in your area that does a lot of Brits, and so she's doing a lot of them. So it becomes a process and a system.
Right.
But generally speaking, they're not going to be your bigger deals.
Okay.
Is there a restriction on number of employees?
When it comes to an E2, there's no specific number. You're supposed to hire, I mean, my guide is at least 2 to 4 employees over the 5 years of the visa and the business plan. So that's where the business plan comes in.
Okay, then the magic number, the magic question is, how long does it take? And I know you can't answer that because each case is different, but how much time should we allow?
For the process?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I said, it depends. If you're doing consular processing, you're looking at a year. If you're doing change of status, you're looking at 4 or 5 months.
4 or 5 months for change of status. Okay.
And a lot of people, if they're vaccinated especially, they may choose to do a change of status to get in more quickly and start the business, and then they can apply for a consular processing, a regular E2 at the same time, and they just go. But when they go to the interview in Toronto, but when they leave the US, they lose their status, but they're going to have the interview, and it's the same package. So I've never seen one denied. Do you understand what I mean? It's kind of like you have a pre-approval and then you go for your formal approval kind of thing.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Stacy.
Hi. Okay, so I have a couple that's already moved their family down here 3 months ago. They already bought a home. They're done with Canada for reasons, and they are super excited about a service-oriented company here in this area. They went and toured it. They love it. They love the price. They can pay cash. They have not had their vaccines, the whole family. They don't believe in that. Where do I go at this point? They want to make an offer, but what are we looking at? Like, what do you think typically we would have to tell the owner of the business? Hey, you're going to have to, if you accept this, you have to keep it going for X amount of, approximately X amount of time, or what are we looking at?
They're looking at a 2-year revolving visa with no opportunity to travel if they aren't vaccinated for the most part.
No opportunity to travel to another country, but not
Out of the US.
Other than the US. What about like you mentioned earlier tonight about having a business plan already typed up and ready?
No, we draft the business plan.
Oh, you do that. Okay,
yeah.
so they don't have to get that. They just need to make an offer. If the offer is accepted.
No, they need to make an offer and have a lawyer review it before they make an offer. So I mean, they need to have somebody do due diligence, set up the proper entities. Yeah, please don't have them sign off on offers without having legal involvement. I have a call at 5:45 about just that matter. Especially when you're dealing with a visa on top of that.
Lauren, what about you? And you do some franchises. So sometimes people get to a point who's checking? Are they being checked every year compared against their business plan, or what's the? I mean,
No,
I know
there's
people
really
come in
no
with
checks and
business.
balances now, but when it comes to renewal, you just need to show that you have your business and you've been successful and you've achieved what you wanted, or you have a reason for not having done it, like COVID, for example.
I got you. Okay.
A quick question about the change of status. This is Clint.
Mhm.
Sorry, I'm driving, so I didn't mean to butt in. But is that usually in relation to a visiting visa type situation? Is that
Yeah,
what?
they start with a B1, B2. They're in status, so they can change their status to in E2 status instead of in E1, E or E2 status. I'm sorry, B1, B2.
Okay, and you were saying that happens on day 91. I'm just
Well,
trying to track.
it's not a hard and fast rule. We just wait at least 3 months before we apply.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And so recently, Stacy had a client, and they were going to the expedited thing, and they charged them $3,000 more. Is that an attorney doing that, or is that something?
It's everything. So that part is all handled by my legal team. Yeah.
I am so sorry. My whole computer froze for the last
You're
2
fine.
minutes. I didn't hear the answer, but hopefully Brian got it for me.
I'm not telling.
Oh no! I'll bring you a bottle of wine.
Okay. All right.
So,
You go.
It's on
Lauren,
recording too.
one more question. How do we, what kind of budget do we tell these people they're going to need from start to finish for the change of status?
It's so my fee, if they work through a group, is basically 30,000. And if they do the change of status, that's inclusive of pretty much everything. If they get a franchise or a business, an existing business, there's going to be additional legal fees, and then filing fees are 2,500.
Okay.
So probably about 40,000, give or take.
So we
Okay,
we
thank
can
you.
tell if we're working with somebody that's looking to get the visa, 40,000 is a good jump off number to tell them, because that's the question that I get is, because everyone wants to know how much is this going to cost.
But the
So I
problem
say
is
call-
that then they're going to go to an immigration lawyer. The immigration lawyer is going to say, I charge 8,000. Yeah, great, but you don't do everything. So when they come to us, it's holistic. It's a one-stop shop. I do everything, and nobody else does that.
And additionally, on the finance side, understanding that they obviously can't get SBA financing, but a lot of them are. I just finished up a deal that they've had some private financing.
Yeah.
At what point does that need to be set in stone, or is that just something to say, talk to Lauren, let her figure it out?
No, I don't figure out the financing.
Not figure out the financing, but for the visa process.
So they're going to need the financing in order to buy the business. So they're going to need the financing in order for the business owner to be willing to sell the business to them. So they're going to have to get the financing in place, whether they end up using it or not.
Okay.
So if there are no further questions, Your Honor, if there are no further questions, I need to rest my voice because I have long COVID and I have spoken for 4 hours straight today and I'm in terrible pain. So I apologize. If any of you want to reach me, there's all of my information right there for you. And I'd be happy to help your clients. And Stacy, thank you for the referral, and anybody else as well. And